They fired me at 8:15 on a Monday morning. Printed letter, 2 witnesses, security guard posted outside the glass conference room like I might steal the coffee maker on my way out. 15 years with the company, and they couldn't even look me in the eye when they handed me the paperwork. My name's Richard Anderson, though most folks call me Rick. I'm 54, been running operations at Carson Maritime Manufacturing since I was 33. Before that, 6 years in the Navy under Admiral Bill Carson himself. Different world back then, different rules about loyalty and earning your keep. The termination meeting was corporate theater at its finest. Preston Whitfield III sat at the head of the table like he owned the place. Well, he thought he did. Third-generation money, never worked a real day in his life. His grandfather had been Carson's business partner back in the 70s, but Preston treated the company like his personal trust fund. We've decided to move in a different direction, he announced, sliding the letter across the polished table. Couldn't even say fired out loud. Had to dress it up in corporate speak. I let the silence stretch before responding. Old Navy habit. When someone's trying to intimidate you, silence makes them uncomfortable. Understood, I said finally. That was it. No drama, no protests, just acknowledgement. They seemed almost disappointed, like they wanted me to beg or threaten lawsuits. Jeffrey Pemberton, one of the other board members, kept watching my face, probably looking for panic or anger. There wasn't any. See, 3 weeks earlier, I'd been sitting in a different kind of room. Hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and dying flowers. Admiral Carson was hooked up to machines, but his mind was sharp as ever. Got something for you, he'd said, pressing an envelope into my hands. Don't open it here. Don't tell anyone about it yet. I didn't ask questions. We'd sailed together long enough to understand orders. Let them show their true colors first, he'd added. His voice wasn't weak, just careful. Deliberate, like when he used to give commands on the bridge. Carson Maritime built parts for Navy ships. Real American manufacturing, not the imported junk floating the market. We employed 500 good people in Michigan, union jobs with benefits and pensions. The kind of operation that kept entire communities afloat. The Admiral had started the company after retiring from the Navy, brought military discipline to manufacturing, treated workers with respect, built something that mattered. When I mustered out, he offered me a job, started me in quality control, moved me up through operations, taught me everything about running a business the right way. Now he was gone and vultures were circling. The funeral had been corporate theater too. Board members stood in perfect formation like they were posing for Forbes magazine. Dark suits, measured grief, the kind that photographs well. I stayed one step behind them, not family, not legacy. Just the guy who made sure things ran smooth while they talked strategy. They'd given speeches about vision and continuity and honoring Carson's memory. Beautiful words, empty as a campaign promise. What they didn't mention was how they'd been undermining me since the day Carson went into the hospital. Nothing dramatic, just passive sabotage. My calendar got lighter. Access to certain reports needed review. Strategic planning meetings happened without me. By the day of the funeral, I was already being erased from company operations. They just hadn't made it official yet. After the service, they gathered at some fancy restaurant downtown. I wasn't invited, but I showed up anyway. Intelligence gathering, you might call it. Old habits from the service. The conversation was all about interim leadership and market reassurance, standard corporate language that meant exactly nothing. But I noticed how my name kept disappearing from their plans, like I was already gone. Preston ran that meeting too, talking about fresh perspectives and new strategic directions. Jeffrey and Bart Sinclair nodded along like trained seals. Both MBA types who could speak fluent buzzword, but couldn't navigate their way out of a parking garage. I thought about ending their little conspiracy right there. Simple sentence, I own 51% of this company now. Would have shut down their scheming in 10 seconds flat. But Carson hadn't given me those papers for drama. He'd done it for a reason. So I kept quiet and waited. Adjusted my watch and stayed on course. The week after the funeral, the passive sabotage became active. Reports I'd been copied on for years suddenly stopped coming. Meetings I'd always attended were mysteriously full. My assistant Sarah Martinez started getting questions about my schedule, my contacts, my files. By Friday, it was clear they wanted me gone, just hadn't figured out how to do it legally. That's the thing about corporate types who inherit their positions. They understand politics, but not procedure. They know how to network, but not how to navigate. Carson had tried to teach them respect for proper process, but they'd learned just enough to be dangerous. Monday morning came and they played their hand. Termination letter, security escort, the whole show, thought they had all the cards. What they didn't understand was that ownership trumps employment every single time. I packed my office slowly, no dramatic gestures, no farewell speeches. Shook hands with Sarah, cleared my personal files, sent no company-wide goodbye. As I walked past reception, I nodded to the security guard who wouldn't meet my eyes. His name was Eddie Martinez, Sarah's cousin, former Army, 2 tours overseas. Good man caught in a bad situation. The humiliation burned, don't get me wrong. 15 years of building something worthwhile, dismissed with a form letter. But underneath that heat was something steadier. Something they hadn't calculated. The termination paperwork moved through corporate channels like clockwork, filed with legal counsel, logged through regulatory systems that track executive changes in publicly traded companies. Standard procedure when a company removes senior management. What Preston's crew didn't account for was the automatic cross-check system. When someone with significant shareholding gets terminated without proper authorization, red flags go up faster than storm warnings on Lake Michigan. They'd been so focused on getting me off the bridge, they forgot to check who actually owned the ship. That envelope Carson gave me in the hospital contained more than I'd expected. Transfer documents properly notarized and dated. Legal papers that made me majority shareholder of Carson Maritime Manufacturing, 51% controlling interest. Not symbolic, not advisory, command authority. He'd been planning this for months, maybe years. Carson always thought 3 moves ahead, whether we were navigating shipping lanes or corporate politics. The papers were dated 2 weeks before he went into the hospital, filed with the proper authorities, recorded in all the right places, bulletproof documentation. There was a handwritten note, too, in his precise script. The ship is yours now. Keep her afloat. Let them show their colors before you hoist yours. I understood the strategy. Give them enough rope, see what they did with it. Thursday afternoon, 2 days after they fired me, our external law firm started asking questions, quietly, professionally. Howard Phillips, our outside counsel, began requesting updated ownership documentation. Routine compliance review, he called it. Carson Maritime was publicly traded, which meant certain rules applied. When a major shareholder gets removed from executive position, the SEC requires verification that proper procedures were followed. Shareholder rights, fiduciary responsibilities, all that legal machinery that keeps corporate pirates from looting the company store. By Friday evening, Howard understood what the board didn't. Over the weekend, Preston drafted a press release about strategic leadership restructuring and fresh management perspectives. It never got published. Meanwhile, I was home in my workshop rebuilding a 1967 Mustang engine, keeping my hands busy while my mind stayed calm. Sarah called twice to check on me. Good woman, been my assistant for 8 years. Worried about her job, worried about the company, worried about what would happen to all the good people who worked there. They're asking questions about your files, she told me Saturday morning. Jeffrey Pemberton wants access to your project reports, your vendor contacts, everything. Let them look, I said. Nothing there they shouldn't see. What I didn't tell her was that the important stuff wasn't in any files they could access. Carson had taught me to keep strategic information close to the vest, key supplier relationships, critical project timelines, emergency procedures, all stored where it mattered most, in the heads of people who'd been with the company long enough to understand how things really worked. Sunday, I drove out to the plant. Not officially, just wanted to see the place on a quiet day. 500,000 square feet of American manufacturing. 3 shifts, 500 workers, building components that kept Navy ships running all over the world. Pride of Michigan, Carson used to call it. Eddie Martinez was working security, recognized my truck in the parking lot, came out to talk, looking uncomfortable. Mr. Anderson, I'm sorry about Monday, he said. That whole thing with the escort, it wasn't right. Management made me do it. I know, Eddie, you were following orders. No hard feelings, he nodded, relieved. Company's not the same without the Admiral. These new guys don't understand what we're building here. That was the thing Preston and his MBA buddies never grasped. Carson Maritime wasn't just about profit margins and quarterly reports. It was about purpose, building something that mattered. Employing people who took pride in their work, contributing to American security one precision machined part at a time. Monday morning came, and the board reconvened for what they thought would be a routine transition meeting. Clean up loose ends, finalize the new management structure, present their fait accompli to the world. Instead, they found 3 additional people at the conference table. Howard Phillips, our external counsel. Stanley Rogers, lead auditor from our accounting firm. Patricia Williams, compliance officer from the regulatory agency. No drama, no raised voices, just documents laid out like navigation charts. Howard walked them through it methodically. Ownership percentages, voting rights, fiduciary responsibilities, legal exposure. Slow, careful, undeniable. The majority shareholder was terminated Friday without proper authorization, he explained. That's a governance violation under Section 14A of the corporate charter. Preston interrupted once. There must be some misunderstanding. The board has full authority over personnel decisions. Not when the personnel in question owns 51% of the company, Howard replied. Majority shareholders can't be terminated by minority board members without cause and due process. When you watch power shift in a room, it doesn't explode like in the movies. It deflates. Faces don't contort with rage. They just settle into new reality. The air changes like pressure dropping before a storm. Jeffrey Pemberton went pale. Bart Sinclair started shuffling papers nervously. Preston just stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. By 9:47, it was formally acknowledged that the termination was procedurally invalid. The board had exceeded its authority under Delaware corporate law and company bylaws, multiple violations, each carrying potential legal consequences. At 10:03, my phone rang. Preston's voice had changed completely. Not apologetic exactly, just recalibrated. We need you to come in, he said. I'll be there at 10:30, I replied. I arrived on time, like always. Same boardroom, same polished conference table, same view of the Detroit River through floor-to-ceiling windows, but everything else had changed. Nobody stood when I entered. The power dynamic had shifted 180 degrees in the span of a weekend. Howard summarized the situation for the official record. The termination was legally invalid. The board had acted without proper authority. Various remedies were available under state and federal law. I listened without comment. No satisfaction, no triumph, just alignment of proper structure, like a compass needle finding magnetic north. I'm not interested in dissolving the board, I said finally. Several shoulders relaxed slightly, but governance will change immediately. No speeches about betrayal or loyalty. The facts had documented themselves. 2 board members resigned by the end of that week, not publicly disgraced, just gone. Quiet departures with face-saving press releases about pursuing new opportunities and spending more time with family. Jeffrey Pemberton was the first to go. Tuesday morning, he submitted a 1-sentence resignation letter. No explanation, no transition plan, just cleared out his office and disappeared. Word around the company was that his wife had given him an ultimatum after learning about the attempted coup. Smart woman. Bart Sinclair lasted until Thursday. Kept trying to negotiate some kind of severance package, as if he deserved compensation for attempting to steal the company. I declined his request for a private meeting. Some conversations aren't worth having. Preston requested a face-to-face that Friday afternoon. I agreed to see him, partly out of curiosity. He showed up looking like he hadn't slept since Monday's revelation. I want you to know this wasn't personal, he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Everything's personal when it involves people's livelihoods, I replied. He shifted uncomfortably. We thought we were acting in the company's best interests. With Carson gone, we needed strong leadership. You had strong leadership. You just didn't recognize it. That ended our conversation. Preston stayed on the board but kept his mouth shut during strategic discussions from that point forward. Sometimes the best lesson is the one that costs you something. The real work began the following week. Carson Maritime needed steady navigation, not corporate politics. Our major Navy contract was up for renewal in 6 months. 3 competitors were bidding against us, including 2 overseas suppliers promising lower costs through cheaper labor. I called an all-hands meeting for the following Monday. All 500 employees gathered in the main assembly area. Most had heard rumors about the boardroom drama, but rumors and facts are different things. Admiral Carson left me in command of this ship, I told them. Simple, direct. Nothing else changes. We build the best components in the world. We take care of each other, and we keep American manufacturing strong. The response was immediate. Applause that started slow and built like an engine warming up. These were people who understood what we were fighting for. Good jobs, American production, something worth protecting. Tom Fletcher, our shop steward, came up afterward. 30-year veteran, started the same week Carson opened the plant. We were worried those suits would shut us down or sell us off to some foreign outfit, he said. Good to know the Admiral picked the right man for the job. That's when I knew we'd weathered the storm. The next 3 months were about rebuilding trust and refocusing on what mattered. I instituted weekly production meetings where floor supervisors could raise concerns directly. No corporate hierarchy, no filtering through management layers. If someone had an idea for improving efficiency or quality, we listened. Results spoke louder than politics. Production efficiency increased 12% in the first quarter. Quality defect rates dropped to their lowest levels in company history. Customer satisfaction scores reached all-time highs. Most importantly, we started hiring again. 50 new positions, all American workers, all good-paying jobs with full benefits. Priority went to veterans transitioning from military service. Carson had always believed in giving former service members a chance to apply their skills in civilian manufacturing, Eddie Martinez was one of the first promotions, moved him from security to facilities management, overseeing plant maintenance and safety protocols. His military background translated perfectly to industrial operations. Attention to detail, respect for procedures, leadership ability that came from real experience. Never thought I'd get a shot like this, he told me during his first week in the new position. Most places they see former military and think we can't adapt to civilian work. Their loss, I replied. Carson always said the best employees are people who understand mission and commitment. Sarah Martinez, Eddie's cousin, became my operations coordinator, promoted her from assistant to a role with real authority over production scheduling and vendor relations. She'd earned it through 8 years of handling everything I threw at her with grace and competence. The Navy contract renewal came up in September. Big meeting at the Pentagon, all the major suppliers presenting their bids. Preston wanted to attend, probably figured it would look good for his resume. I went alone. Admiral Rebecca Hayes chaired the selection committee. Tough, professional, reminded me of Carson in her attention to detail and no-nonsense approach. She'd done her homework on all the bidders. Carson Maritime has the highest quality ratings, she noted, reviewing our submission, but also the highest costs. Help me understand the value proposition. When a sailor's life depends on equipment working properly 1,000 miles from shore, cost becomes secondary to reliability, I said. Every component we build is manufactured to mil-spec standards by American workers who understand what's at stake. The overseas bidders talked about cost savings and efficiency gains. PowerPoint presentations full of charts and projections. Looked impressive on paper. But when Admiral Hayes asked about quality control procedures and manufacturing oversight, their answers got vague. Hard to maintain American military standards when production happens in facilities you visit twice a year. We got the contract renewal, 5-year deal, expandable options, commitment for $200 million in Navy components. Largest contract in company history. The celebration party happened on the factory floor, not in some corporate conference room. Pizza and beer after the second shift ended. Everyone invited. Workers brought their families, kids running around between the machines that built parts for American warships. Carson would have loved it. He always said the real measure of a company wasn't profit margins or stock prices. It was whether you could look your employees in the eye and know you were building something worthwhile together. Standing in that factory, watching 500 Americans celebrate honest work and secure futures, I knew we'd honored his memory properly. Not through empty speeches or corporate theater, but through results that mattered. The ship was sailing steady now, crew knew their stations, and the mission continued. 6 months later, the company was running better than it had in years. We'd hired 75 new workers, expanded our manufacturing capacity, and secured 2 additional contracts with the Coast Guard for specialized marine equipment. American jobs building American defense capabilities. The veteran hiring program had become a model for other manufacturers in the region. We partnered with local VFW chapters and military transition centers to identify qualified candidates. Former Navy machinists, Army logistics specialists, Air Force technicians, people with skills that translated directly to precision manufacturing. Marcus Williams joined us in October, former Marine Sergeant, 12 years of service, including 3 combat deployments. Started on the shop floor operating CNC machines, moved up to quality control supervisor within 4 months. Natural leader, understood the importance of getting things right the first time. This place reminds me of the good parts of military service, he told me during his 6-month review. Clear mission, competent leadership, people who take pride in their work. Not many civilian companies operate like that. It wasn't just veterans who benefited. The entire workforce responded to leadership that respected their skills and treated them like professionals. Turnover dropped to almost 0. Productivity increased 18% year over year. Customer satisfaction scores reached levels Carson would have been proud of. Preston Whitfield gradually faded into the background. Still technically on the board, still drew his director's fees, but stopped pretending he understood manufacturing or strategy. His contributions to meetings became limited to asking about quarterly dividends and nodding when actual business got discussed. Sometimes I wondered if he'd learned anything from the experience. Probably not. People like Preston rarely do. They're insulated from consequences by family money and social connections. But he'd learned to stay out of the way, which was progress of a sort. The real vindication came in December when Admiral Hayes visited our facility for a routine supplier inspection. Standard Navy procedure, but her timing felt deliberate. Word had gotten around Pentagon procurement circles about our management changes and improved performance. She toured the entire plant, asked detailed questions about quality control procedures, spoke directly with floor workers about their training and equipment. Professional assessment, no ceremony or politics. Impressive operation, she told me in my office afterward. Your quality metrics are the best in the supplier network. More importantly, your people understand what they're building and why it matters. Admiral Carson always said that's the foundation of good manufacturing. People who take pride in their work produce better results. She nodded. He was right. The Navy depends on suppliers who understand that lives are on the line. Some companies see government contracts as easy money. You see them as responsibility. That conversation validated everything we'd been working toward. Not just business success, but purpose. Carson Maritime Manufacturing wasn't just another defense contractor chasing profits. We were Americans building equipment that kept other Americans safe. I keep Carson's final photo on my desk now. Him in Navy dress whites, taken the day he made Admiral. Sometimes I catch myself adjusting my watch the same way he used to. Old habits from the service, reminders of lessons learned under his command. The envelope he gave me that day in the hospital contained one more item I haven't mentioned. A second note, sealed in a separate envelope marked open after 1 year. I found it last week, exactly 12 months after his funeral. Rick, it said in his precise handwriting, if you're reading this, the ship is sailing true. You earned command through service, not politics. Keep teaching that lesson to the next generation. The company is stronger because you understand the difference between authority and leadership. Fair winds and following seas. Bill fair winds and following seas. Traditional Navy farewell, wish for safe passage on whatever voyage comes next. I've been thinking about that phrase a lot lately. Carson Maritime is secure now, profitable, growing. The crew knows their jobs, the mission is clear, the future looks bright. Maybe it's time to start planning the next phase. Sarah Martinez has been running day-to-day operations for months now, handling vendor relations and production scheduling with the same competence she brought to being my assistant. She's earned consideration for promotion to Chief Operating Officer. Eddie Martinez has transformed facilities management, implementing safety protocols and maintenance procedures that exceed industry standards. Marcus Williams shows promise for supervisory leadership. The next generation is learning what Carson taught me, that real leadership comes from service, not entitlement, that American manufacturing can compete with anyone when it's done right, that taking care of your people isn't just good business, it's good citizenship. Some evenings, I walk through the plant after the second shift ends. 500,000 square feet of precision manufacturing equipment, all quiet and ready for tomorrow's production. The smell of metal and cutting oil, the ordered arrangement of tools and materials, the American flags hanging over each department. This is what we fought to preserve, not just a company or profits or stock prices, a way of doing business that honors work, respects workers, and contributes something meaningful to the country that gave us all opportunities. They thought they could fire me, take over the company, probably sell it off to the highest bidder, reduce everything Carson built to balance sheet entries and quarterly reports. They were wrong. The ship is sailing steady now, crew knows their stations, and the mission continues. American workers building American defense equipment for American service members. Simple purpose, clear execution, results that matter. Carson would approve. The company he started with military discipline and manufacturing pride is stronger than ever. The values he instilled, service, competence, integrity, guide every decision we make, and the next generation is learning those lessons too. That's how you honor a legacy, not through speeches or monuments, but through continuation, through results. Through proving every day that the principles he taught still work in the real world. Fair winds and following seas, Admiral. The ship remains in good hands.
The watch continues.
Real power isn't taken. It's earned through service, proven through storms, and measured by the people you protect when you finally have the authority to choose. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's proving that honor, patience, and doing things the right way will always outlast shortcuts, politics, and inherited privilege.